I've got two kinds of mystery meat. Let's make a meatloaf like Mom never made. Hi everybody, this is Nate P, and today we're making the comfort food classic, meatloaf. Meats of questionable origin have been a staple of military rations since the beginning of militaries, but being able to preserve and extend the shelf life of meat is a much more recent development.
Meat as a component of military rations has been a staple of the soldier's diet since the beginning of organized militaries. For the United States, transporting meat rations has been one of the biggest logistic problems. During the American Civil War, meat was brought to soldiers the old-fashioned way, on the hoof. During the Spanish-American War, which saw nearly 300,000 Americans serve, fresh meat was less easy to obtain, and the U.S. Army wanted a quicker, less expensive way to feed its men. This resulted in the use of canned beef for the first time, as well as frozen blocks of deboned meat. While reducing the weight of meat by nearly 25%, it also created meat that was of very poor quality. Soldiers described this meat saying, "It made myself and my comrades gag. At best, it was tasteless. At worst, it was nauseating." Meat shipped in frozen blocks experienced what were referred to as temperature abuses during the Spanish-American War, when they were left out of their freezer holds in the hot sun of Cuba and Puerto Rico. An investigation in 1898 following the scandal, led by President William McKinley, aimed to find the responsible parties for creating what was being called the embalmed beef scandal. Ultimately, the Army meat scandal had no real lasting effect, though undeterred, the U.S. Army continued to seek out ways to preserve meat. Beginning with World War II, the U.S. Army started shipping beef to soldiers exclusively in frozen blocks. Each block contained various cuts of beef, with all of the bones and connective tissue removed. While this method was indeed more economical and safer than embalmed beef, soldiers complained of poor quality and uneven distribution of more desirable cuts. Unlike most military food development, boxed and frozen beef did not sell well in the civilian world. It wasn't until the early 1960s that advertisers, farmers, and the meatpacking industry began to push for the sale of boxed meat. Food scientists were not done here, though. Natick labs began tweaking what they offered soldiers beginning in the 1960s. In a 1966 report, Natick offered a glowing assessment of their project, saying, "We have developed a highly acceptable fabricated beef steak, which is among the meat items heat stabilized in flexible pouches. This steak is prepared by a proprietary process, including adding a small amount of salt to trimmings, treating it to cover all surfaces with a heat coagulant protein, pressing it into molds, heating it to a temperature to set the protein, and eventually cutting it into serving sizes." This meat processing process effectively made meat Play-Doh that was gradually rolled out to soldiers in the 1970s and 80s. On the civilian side, perhaps the most well-known benefactor of this kind of fabricated meat is McDonald's and the McRib, as well as countless other meat-like items on your grocery store shelves. But that'll be a topic for another episode.
So what we're going to do today is take our pork patty, or beef patty, grind the two of those up, add our Santa Fe rice as a binder, form it into a loaf, and bake it for about 15 minutes, while we baste it with a grape jelly and barbecue sauce glaze. So let's get loafing. Alright, so here we are, folks. We've got our finished MRE meatloaf. Let's go ahead and cut into this and see how it is. So, the smell is pretty good. You've got kind of a smoky smell from the barbecue. There's a sweet undertone to that, probably from the jelly. And then this kind of savory mix of meat and then, vaguely Mexican food, I guess, from the rice. But let's go ahead and cut on into this. Oh, okay, well, I don't know if you can tell here, this has almost no structural integrity. It is a lump of mush. So I didn't add any egg to this. Maybe not unreasonably that this hold itself together, but clearly not. I don't know how good this is going to be. I mean, it's probably not going to be horrible, but let's get some of this and give it a try. Well, it's spicy from the jalapeno beef patty. A lot of stuff going on. You got rice, beans, two different kinds of meat. Really, the overpowering flavor I've got is barbecue sauce and the spiciness, the jalapeno flavor. But here's the thing. I've said that about most MRE components. At first sniff, it's not that great, but if you eat it some more, it's okay. If I did this over again, I'd probably use eggs. That would probably bind it together a little bit better. So, do I want to eat more of it? Not really. It's, you know, it was an interesting experiment. Maybe we'll revisit this recipe again at some point and see if we can get a good meatloaf out of this. So that does it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you know exactly when my next video comes out. Until then, we'll see you around.